If Jesus was not raised from the dead, then the Bible isn't true, heaven isn't real, and this life is as good as it gets. But thank God the evidence proves otherwise. Christianity stands or falls with the resurrection of Jesus Christ, and for over 2,000 years, no one has proven it to be false. Stay tuned for 5 big reasons you can trust the Bible. Jesus once said, "The truth will set you free." It's not that people can't know the truth. The problem is they don't like what they find because they don't want to change how they live. Let's look at just a fraction of the overwhelming evidence supporting the historical resurrection of Jesus, as well as the accuracy and reliability of the Bible. First, even liberal scholars and historians agree on these basic facts. Jesus was publicly executed and died by crucifixion. His tomb was empty. The body was missing. His disciples believed he rose and then appeared to them. James, a former skeptic and half-brother of Jesus, was suddenly changed. The church persecutor Paul was suddenly and radically changed. So how do you explain the fact Christianity rapidly expanded in the first century? Within one generation of the death of Christ, this movement spread from Israel to Europe, Africa, and Asia. Where did it start? And is there a way to know for sure? Well, in Luke chapter 1, verse 4, he gives the reason for his gospel, so that you may know the exact truth about the things you have been taught. Christianity is the only religion which bases its faith on a verifiable event. Second, if you're not a believer yet and are skeptical about the Bible's claims, consider a few ancient historians. According to Thales, there was a darkness during the day for 3 hours, followed by an earthquake that occurred at the point of Jesus' crucifixion. Jewish historian Josephus lived in the first century and wrote about events surrounding Jesus in more detail than any other non-biblical source. Roman historian Suetonius wrote about new levels of punishment Nero inflicted on Christians and described Jesus as having had immediate impact on his followers. Tacitus confirms Christianity was founded by a man named Christus, who he said was, quote, put to death as a criminal by Pontius Pilate, procurator of Judea, in the reign of Tiberius, end quote. Some used to claim Pilate and Caiaphas never existed, no such people. Well, a first-century inscription discovered at Caesarea in 1961 confirms Pilate was indeed procurator of Judea from 26 to 36 AD. Jesus was on trial before high priest Caiaphas before he was taken to Pilate. The tomb of the Caiaphas family was discovered in Jerusalem in 1990, and inside were the very bones of the infamous high priest mentioned in the Gospels. History and archaeology are very inconvenient for mockers and skeptics. Third, this is one of the most compelling proofs of the resurrection of Jesus. Thousands of people saw Jesus' miracles. At least hundreds of people were eyewitnesses who saw him after being raised from the dead, and many were mentioned by name in the Bible. You better have your facts straight if you name names. The eyewitnesses include Mary Magdalene, the other women at the tomb accompanying Mary, the Roman guards, the 11 disciples, 2 others on the road to Emmaus, over 500 people at the same time, and then James and then Paul. Now, Jesus lived on earth another 40 days before ascending to heaven, so it's safe to suggest there were probably many more eyewitnesses. Fourth, this is such an important point regarding the resurrection of Jesus. We have books in the New Testament that were written during the period when eyewitnesses were still alive. At least 2 books may have been written within 15 years of the resurrection. No wonder the Jews and the Romans could not refute the facts. Now, the Bible includes both primary and secondary sources of reference. Primary means the books were written by eyewitnesses, while secondary means other books were written by men who interviewed eyewitnesses, those who actually saw the events. Now, fortunately for truth seekers, there's an abundance of historical manuscript evidence in both categories. Fifth, and finally, if it was a lie, what were the motives of Jesus' disciples? Certainly not popularity. Experts suggest when a conspiracy is formed, there are basically these motivating factors: money or greed, power or fame, lust or sexual passion. Now, most of the disciples were killed for their faith. Christianity faced huge obstacles because it was a brand new movement. They had no money, They taught about love, sacrifice, self-denial, and they were subject to the most intense hatred and persecution. Why then have so many Christian martyrs through the centuries been willing to go to prison or even die for their faith instead of deny Jesus? Well, the only logical reason to believe the gospel is because the resurrection actually occurred. The Jews and Romans could not refute Jesus' resurrection and stop Christianity from spreading. Why? Because they could not. There are no second chances after you die. You can ignore the evidence and deny the truth, or acknowledge the resurrection of Jesus, believe in him, confess your sins and be forgiven, then have everlasting life. This could be the most meaningful Easter season you will ever have. I'm David Fiorazo. God bless you and keep speaking the truth about things that matter.